Hello, welcome to the 360 Point of View podcast supported by Mothers of Victims Equality, also known as M.O.V.E. Inc. We are so glad to have you joining us for this first episode as we introduce ourselves and the podcast. With the release of each episode, we will also release a second version translated into Spanish by Lina Esposito, so if you would prefer to listen in Spanish, check out that release here. Today, we are introducing the hosts, myself and Corrinna Martin, as well as our mission for this podcast and of our supporting organization, Mothers of Victims Equality. Drawing from Corrinna and M.O.V.E.'s mantra, we always want to give a 360 point of view for purpose out of pain. So I am one of your hosts, Lily Swansiger. I'm a podcast facilitator. I'm a junior at UConn majoring in physiology and neurobiology, and I'm an intern at Mothers of Victims Equality. Corrinna, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Corrinna Martin. As Lily had stated, I am the president and founder of Mothers of Victims Equality. I am a mother. I am also co-host to the 360 podcast, and I'm looking forward to being with you for this next hour. And if you like, please subscribe and continue to look out for new episodes.
Absolutely. Thank you. And can you tell us a little bit about M.O.V.E. Inc.?
So, M.O.V.E. is a nonprofit organization that was started back in 2013 by myself and my daughters because of the murder and dismemberment of my daughter, Alicia Marie Wiley, who was a sophomore at Eastern Connecticut State University by her boyfriend of 4 years. She was exiting out of the relationship to terminate it, and um, that was not, I guess, what he intended, he wanted to happen. And so, because of the discrepancies and the lack of support by agencies and organizations around the time of Alicia's disappearance, when we were still looking for her, um, we as a family talked about how there should be an organization out there that would be able to come and meet the people or families where they are that are struggling with death and loss of their loved ones, and to be able to provide them the full support that they need, educating them about the about grief management, and the healing process, just a full, complete wraparound support network of services for the families. And so that's why we decided to start Mothers of Victims Equality. And the purpose of it is to not only raise awareness and educate, empower, and engage our communities, but to also debunk or destigmatize dating and domestic violence, especially in the eyes of police, the judicial system, or systems as a whole, in society and communities, especially the quantification that they put on the value of human life, knowing that it's sometimes their own biased based opinions as to the quality of life based on gender, um, ethnicities, just demographics, the whole makeup of a person, their beliefs. None of these should be a factor as to why their life should be of lesser value or
Mhm.
of a lesser importance. So that's what we did in 2013. Unfortunately, in 2017, we had to pivot from that because our family was devastated, extremely devastated again, with the murders of my daughter and granddaughter, Shakwa Nicola Trees Brody and Majaya Michelle Marie Richardson. Um, and so with their murders, we as a family and myself particularly realize that it's not just about educating, about bringing awareness, about speaking up and speaking out and trying to destigmatize dating and domestic violence, but it's also about learning how to apply what we learn properly, right? And also to understand that it's so vast, the umbrella of dating and domestic violence, that it's all encompassing and it's intersectional with all systems. Like there's no one that is immune to it, right? And that it's not just what we had categorized as physical, emotional, psychological, mental or physiological, but there's more encompassing to that. It goes on to stalking, computerized computerization of abuse, right? There's just so much evidence base out there now, and from even our own experiences of realizing that the vastness of domestic violence has to be we have to speak up, and we can't just um, put it out there in awareness factor, but it has to be understood what the signs are, what the effects are, right? And how to be able to combat that and to go from calling it just domestic violence or dating violence, but to actually label it for what it really is, toxicities, right? The toxicities in which we that befall us within our lives. So that's what Mothers of Victims Equality is about. That's what the essence of us that we do now, and we do that in the form of not just workshops and events, or this 360 podcast, but also in full wraparound support services to all those in the community that are affected by it, by these toxicities, right? Anywhere from first responders to doctors, lawyers, no one's immune from it, right? Any of us can have this befall upon us at any given point in time. And also, again, refuting and debunking the myths that, well, not necessarily myths, but older facts that it's just those that have been exposed to domestic violence are the only ones that will either be perpetrators of it or victims of it. And that's not necessarily true, right? We're learning now that there's secondary um, traumas in association with helping those that are going through toxicities. There's toxicities of different forms and factors. And so bringing that to the forefront and utilizing platforms such as the podcast and, social media and workshops and events and different things like that are the ways in which we will be able to debunk or destigmatize the point of view of what
Mhm.
domestic violence really is.
Well, thank you so much for sharing more about Move and about the stories of your daughters and granddaughter and your story. They're extremely inspiring for how that you started Move. And we're so excited to have you as a host of 360 Point of View. So we can get into more information about the podcast and the idea behind 360 Point of View.
Mhm.
So, 360 Point of View presents open discussions about trauma from different perspectives, including firsthand and key community members, especially
Right.
focusing on the impact of trauma on minorities. Hosted by myself and Corrinna Martin, the founder of Mothers of Victims Equality. Each
Mhm.
episode, we speak to one or more guests about their experiences with healing, community, and their personal observations on trauma. Throughout this podcast, we seek to bring more awareness about trauma for those who are impacted, have loved ones impacted, or if you're just seeking more knowledge.
It's awareness too, Lily. We have to be cognizant of the fact that we're also promoting healing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we're promoting um, not not just awareness on a societal point of view, but on a individualized point of view. And that's why we're bringing in so many, and that's why we call it 360, right? Because we want to get different points of views. We want the male perspective, the black male perspective, white male. It doesn't matter. We want the male perspective. We want the female perspective. We want the professional perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want those that outside of just ourselves, or but we want those that have experienced it on different levels that we had, which I had aforementioned about the all encompassing of toxicities, right? And being able to identify those toxicities from all angles, right? Or points of view. So yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely. It's we're diving deep, and we're going more than just awareness. We're going to dissect and again, debunk or destigmatize what our perception of, or our points of view are of
Mm-hmm.
domestic violence, or as we like to say, toxicities, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thank you. I thank you so much for being a part, wanting to host this with me. I feel honored and privileged to be able to have you as our host, and for me to be able to co-host with you. But I would like to ask you, Lily, what inspired you? What prompted you to want to be able to be a part of this podcast, to be a part of Move, right? And to be a part of this endeavor to bring something new and different, right? To the
Mm-hmm.
way in which we dive into domestic violence or toxicities.
Well, yes, I would love to share. Thank you. Um, I grew up in Newtown, Connecticut, which is a larger section well, it's the larger town that Sandy Hook, Connecticut is located in. So I was exposed to gun violence at a young age, and I have done a lot of growing as I've come into my young adulthood as a 20-year-old. And I've become more trauma informed. And I've always had an interest in advocacy and helping people. So that's really what led me to Move. And when I found out that the podcast was about trauma, it just was even more exciting because it would give me opportunity to share what I've learned and things like that.
Oh, I love that. And my heart goes out to you and the community of Newtown. I remember all of that when it happened. And it was so tragic for the whole state of Connecticut, right?
Absolutely.
We can't even imagine how that felt for though all of you and all those who have been affected, and whether it been firsthand or secondary, and we all were exposed, right? Secondary. So
Hmm.
that brings about one of the points that I had just brought about before you talking, is how these toxicities, these traumas, right? Domestic violence as we know it to be, it does not discriminate, right? There's no bounds to it. We are all in some form or fashion at one point or time in our lives exposed, right?
Hmm.
And so being able to start that path of healing, which is what we're encouraging, right, through the podcast. And I thank you for allowing me to be a part of your healing journey. And being able to share that with everyone is a victory in and of itself for all of us, right?
Hmm.
And so being able to know and being exposed in that way, it gives us a different perspective or a different point of view, right?
Hmm.
Because we know those feelings, we know those emotions, we know that mental and that physiological effect that it has on us, right? And so to
Hmm.
be able to convey that to others puts it into a more in your face, and this could be in my home point of, way of thinking about it, but also presenting it. So thank you so much for sharing that. And again, I'm inspired by you because it takes a lot, right? It takes a lot. There's so many paths that when you're exposed to that kind of trauma that you can take. And for you to take the one less traveled, but the one of healing, that's a lot of strength. It takes a lot of strength. So I thank you for sharing that with us and for allowing us to be a part of that strengthening network that you're building for yourself and we're trying to build for our communities.
Thank you so much. So, as we learn more about the podcast, would you mind telling us a little bit more about where the 360 point of view title came from, its meaning, um, the degrees, anything like that?
So, in respect to degrees, you're meaning as far as why is it 360 degrees?
Yep.
Okay, so 360 degrees means that we're giving a full view, right?
Hmm.
So when you think of 360 or think of a circle, it's 360 degrees, right? So it's coming full circle, right? So
Yep.
this right here is a full circle moment for me. This is a full circle moment for a lot of people. It's a full circle moment for you. I don't want to speak for you, but we have that commonality, right?
Hmm.
So this is a way of bringing of bringing our hurts, our desires that we would have liked to have seen during that time of our most unimaginable pains and hurts, right? To be able to have it in such a way that those that are going through similar pains or hurts would be able to know that they're not alone. Right. So that's what is the meaning behind the 360. That's where the degrees come in at. It's really a full circle moment for all of us, especially when you go from being a victim or even a perpetrator to being a victor and an overcomer, right? Or
Hmm.
being an ally, right? So it takes people say, well, no, it's really a 180. No, it's actually a 360 because you're completely turning yourself around. You're
Hmm.
going from one extreme to another, but the one that you're coming from is the weaker one to building the strength. And sometimes when you're building strength, you have to completely reinvent yourself, right? So this is where that 360 comes in at. That's the meaning behind it, that full circle moment where we're reinventing. So we're not just reinventing ourselves, we're not just reinventing those that are going through the similarities that we have of hurts and pains that we have
Hmm.
endured of traumas or toxicities, but it's also, get this, reinventing the way we view domestic violence, right? So we're taking it from calling it domestic or dating or intimate partner violence to toxicities or toxic relationships. Because when you think about that, then that means that's all encompassing, right? Because we
Right.
we have relationships in whatever in so many different capacities at work, at school, at home, in society, in our communities, right? So we all at one given point in time, I love it when people say, well, I've never dealt with domestic violence. But then when we break it down that way, when we give them that different point of view of seeing the toxicities, of seeing the toxicness in
Hmm.
which we are exposed to, or the traumas in which we have been exposed to, and those traumas could have been from childhood, they could have been from a teenager, young adulthood, or even older, right? And we see in these different facets of life, there's always a change. Science says rather that we metamorphosize or our bodies rejuvenate, or there's changing form every 7 years.
Hmm.
So we're always constantly changing. We're having full circle moments, or we're having a 360-degree turnaround and we don't even realize it because it's just the makeup of who we are as humans. So
Right.
that's where this comes in at with the podcast. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's just giving that full circle, that 360 point of view, and being able to bring everyone in to know that this isn't just a he and she problem or a you and me problem. This is a we problem.
Right. And we're going to be covering the 360 point of view, but we also have the different degrees that we're using to name the different kind of perspectives we're sharing. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about that?
Um, oh, what would be the different degrees of which what we're doing? What we're doing? Oh, with what? With professional. Is
Yes,
that the
yeah.
one you? Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Good. For a second. Okay. So in our 360 point of view, the different degrees in which we're coming at is we're coming at, I thought I said it, but then let me reiterate it. We're coming at from a female perspective, right? From the Black and Brown community. We're coming from the those in other communities that do not associate themselves as being Black and Brown, right? We're also coming from first responders. We're coming from professionals, right? We're coming from those that have been exposed or those that are in or working in
Hmm.
the field um, in and of themselves. So when we say professionals, it's doctors, it's lawyers, it's in that capacity. And when we say in the field, we're talking about therapists, social workers, counselors, right? Or supporters, like, we all call ourselves at Move as being supporters, being able to fill in those gaps that are
Hmm.
needed for that expose us to whatever systemic improprieties or barriers that we face due to our traumas, toxicities, toxic relationships, or AKA domestic violence.
Hmm. Thank you. And what type? Sorry?
No, I said, was that it? That was what you were looking for? Okay.
Yes. I was gonna say, what type of topics and conversations can we hope to listen to in the future?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Absolutely. What type of topics and conversations can we hope to listen to in the future? Give us just like a
Oh,
rough idea of what you'd like to
so
cover.
we got dealing with things, dealing with toxicities in the workplace, dealing with toxicities at school, right? On the college level, on the high school level, dealing with toxicities within the home, right? We
Mhm.
have what what is secondary trauma, right? And how that affects those that treat or have to come to support, like us with supporters, as
Mhm.
supporters, or as therapists, social workers, counselors, doctors, lawyers, police officers, fire persons, right? So all of these, those are just to name a few, right? Just for right
Yeah.
now, because that's a big ask for us for right now. So that'll keep us busy for a little bit, but it also, it's bringing to light that, again, our lives at any given point in time, in whatever capacities we're
Mhm.
living it, we can be exposed, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just making sure that, again, not just bringing in the awareness, and not just teaching how to apply it, but we're also going to prayerfully meet you where you are on your healing journey, right? Or rediscovering yourself, right? And being able to just support you along that. I'm just so super excited to be along for this ride, right? To be able
Hmm.
to experience it with you and everyone out there who tunes into our different episodes.
Yeah.
Because I just know that there's going to be these aha or epiphany type of moments, right?
Hmm.
So,
Perfect. Thank you. So now that we've told you more about what we are going to cover in future episodes, we just have a little bit more information to share as we wrap up episode 0. Um, we hope to include a segment of each episode where audience members can send us any questions or share their experiences. If you're interested, please contact us at our email, which is 360povpod@gmail.com. And I'll just repeat it, 360povpod@gmail.com, or call and leave us a message on our Google Voice number at 203-680-8557. Any messages we receive, the sender will remain anonymous, and if there are any names included, we will change them for privacy reasons. If you're interested in sponsoring our podcast and having an ad in our episodes, you can reach us at our email or any of the social media we have plugged at the end of the episode. Today was episode 0 of 360 Point of View and included the introduction of our hosts, myself and Corrinna Martin, our supporting organization, M.O.V.E. Incorporated, and hopefully gave you an idea of the content we will be providing in later episodes. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to continue tuning in, we would love if you would subscribe, leave us a review, or follow us on social media. If you're interested in being a guest or volunteer for 360 Point of View, you can reach us at our email or any of our social media. For social media, we are on Facebook and Instagram under Mothers of Victims Equality, Inc. M.O.V.E.'s website is move-inc.org. Each episode is uploaded to Spotify and YouTube, where you can find us as 360 Point of View. And next episode, we will be featuring a professional perspective in our conversation on trauma. We look forward to seeing you there. And as we mentioned at the beginning, with this episode and each future episode, we will also release a version translated into Spanish. We'd like to thank everyone for tuning in, as well as thank Lena Esposito for translating. And Corrinna, thank you so much for helping host the first episode.
Thank you, Lily, for allowing me to be part of this monumentous endeavor and so exciting. I'm just so happy and thrilled and honored. Thank you so much.
I'm so happy as well. So thank you, everyone, and we are gonna close out for the day.
Have a blessed one, everybody.